don't know me, my name is Justin Schwartz. I'm the senior pastor here at Mount Summit Christian Church, and I want to personally thank you for coming. I know Carol and her family are very thankful for your presence here today. I suppose I should say, if you can, mute your phones. That's probably a good idea to do it now before things get going. So we've come together today to remember and honor Dawn in the presence of God. So as we prepare to celebrate how God's will was done through Dawn's life, I encourage you to join me in prayer. We'll pray the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
So, my dad went on to his new home on Saturday, Easter weekend. This seemed fitting for one so dedicated to the church and to his faith. One who never let a day close without a very lengthy prayer to his Creator, asking for special care for all that he loved. And I guarantee you, every one of you was mentioned at least once, if not multiple times. I was with him, and his passing was so peaceful that I was unable to recognize the exact moment that he moved on. It was the kind of passing we all hope for, here on this plane, one moment, and then seamlessly transitioning into the next plane to be with his Creator in the next moment. He was 96 on January 28th. I decorated the house as usual, brought him his own little cake with cookies and cream ice cream. Had to be that kind. And of course, the cake had candles. He took the ritual of making a wish before blowing out the candles very seriously. And he paused to think of his wish, just like always. I asked if he made a wish, and he said, "Oh yeah." But he didn't tell. And I didn't ask, as I had been told that might make it so it would not come true. We sang happy birthday. He, of course, added, and you can do it with me if you want, and many more. Yep, I knew you knew. And he then stated what he has been saying after every birthday for the last 5 or 6 years. And I hope to have many, 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 many more. Raise your hand if you've ever heard that. Yeah. And I had the thought I had had for the last 5 or 6 years. That's a lot of minis. Many, 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 many. Okay. But that's how he saw it. He really didn't seem to think about an end. He seemed to always just be moving on. There was no talk ever of death, or not being here much longer, or not wanting to be here much longer. Now, he did lament the fact that he'd lost his muscles and would really be peeved on the occasional day he had to have help getting up from the chair. But other than that, if he could run his daily routine of Steak and Shake and have a drive, which my mother would beautifully do day in and day out, 2 to 3 hours, he was pretty content. You know, he said frequently to anyone who would listen, "You know, she takes really good care of me." And she did, the drive included. So, in terms of my dad, I think thinking about that he never thought about death, he really did live that thing that we're told to do, which is to live in the moment. Well, I'm going to state the obvious here. Be prepared. I could probably talk for the whole hour. could talk even longer if push came to shove. I've been told on occasion, okay, on many occasions by many people, that I talk a lot. That I can talk to anyone anytime, and it has even been said I can enter a room, not know a soul, but people would think I'd known those people forever when I walked back out. Now, you might have the misconception that comes from my mother. It does not. That comes from my father. And if you knew him very well, you would know that those things described him. So if there is anyone to blame, it's him. Well, let me tell you. I have this gift of gab, and I know it came from him. He was never at a loss for words. He would tell a joke or give a compliment, and it didn't matter where we were. It didn't matter. He'd never seen that person for even a half a second. And he even thought he could speak infant, young child. He would do something, and I'm not particularly good at it. If you want to help. I don't know where he got it, but he did it my whole life with everybody that was about that tall and down. And you know, it seemed like they did speak that language because they'd always laugh and giggle back, and that entertained him greatly. Now, I am going to tell you, you really aren't going to listen to me for an entire hour, and you can heave a sigh of relief. Instead, this time and space will be about what you remember. Times you appreciated something my dad did or said. Times he was goofy or made you laugh, or, and there were plenty of these too, scratch your head, shake it a little bit, and wonder with a smile. So, this is what I've heard my mom say repeatedly. This is not to be an overly sad, depressing thing. Okay. He's been here 96 years, and he's had a good life. I want this to be a celebration. To hear about him, to talk about the good that he did while he was here, the fun and the funny times. So that's what we're charged with. And by golly, that's what we will do. As you know, my mother has spoken. So, I know talking on the fly is not easy for everyone, and it may not be that you want to, and that's absolutely fine. You don't have to say anything. We do have a few people that have planned to speak, and I'm going to have them come up and talk some. In between, we do have this mic that can be carried to you if you have a story you want to tell or something you want to say. We have Rob Stevenson back here in church. If he wants to say something right in the middle of the sermon, he does. My only request would be if you want to be like Rob and go, I know exactly what you're talking about. Something like that. You are welcome to do that, but do it loud, because if you're not loud, my mother won't catch it, and my mother wants to catch it all. So again, my mother's spoken. Just stand up and belt it out. All right, Jim, I know you. That may come to you right there, right? A thought may come. You go ahead. You want to say an amen? Go for it. All right. So this is meant to be, this is the other thing she said, this is meant to be an informal thing. By golly, it looks formal to me. Man, we've got a lot of people. But it is meant to be a celebration, not perfection. So if somebody stumbles up the steps, we're going to laugh at him and move on. We're going to start with something that I received from Mark O'Brien. And he was a minister that was here for many, many years, and I want to share that, and then we will move on with some others that have prepared things. If you need to leave at some point, you need to just get up and go. You have to go to the bathroom, get up and go. We are truly talking about this being informal, and we understand completely. There is a meal afterward we would love for you to stay for, but again, it is all to be just whatever anybody needs. So this is from Mark O'Brien. There are so many memories, so many stories I want to share about Don. If I shared them all, being the preacher I am, it would make things not go so well. So one of the things that stands out in my mind is Don's unwavering willingness to help when help was needed. If there was a shut-in or a hospital patient, cleaning of the church, Don was always ready and willing to help out in any way he could. And there's a lesson in this of Don's willingness to serve for all of us. On a personal note, as many of you remember, my father suffered with Alzheimer's. He lived with me for many years, and there were church matters I needed to take care of. And in those situations, Don would often sit with my dad. My dad so enjoyed these visits, and he always remembered Don's name, even though he didn't remember many others. I always smile when I think about the several times that I would miss a phone message while he was sitting with my dad, because Don would answer the phone, would not be able to hear it, and he would give it to my dad, who could not remember it. He was here for 17 years, and he says, "Not only was I his pastor for 17 years, but Don was and will always be my dear friend. I am thankful that we were together for the time we were on this earth." And I thank you, Mark, for that. So if we are ready, Alan, would you like to come on up? Alan is, I used to love to say, much younger than me. Now, I really wish that wasn't true. You know how age changes things. He's my first cousin.
Afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I am Alan Hoopingarner, one of the older grandsons of Perry Clarence and Venus Pearl Hoopingarner. I was honored to call the oldest son, Donald Wade Hoopingarner, my uncle. I always looked up to him in many ways, whether it be his apparent love for family and friends, or his height of 6 foot, which I almost made it to at 5'11". I might have gotten my love of ice cream from helping him crank the ice cream maker on the back porch of his country home on 600 North. He did love ice cream. Uncle Don was a strong and gentle man whose strength was apparent in my youth and adulthood, with his handshake or a hug which could take your breath away. My father, Glenn, was one of his younger brothers who was born on his birthday 6 years later. He said he wanted a new bike, but instead he got another brother, which he would smile and laugh about. I don't think he minded too much because they loved each other very much. We could all learn a lesson of faithful service from the way Uncle Don lived his life. Rest in peace, good and faithful servant. Love you, Uncle Don.
Bringing back up just in case. I think everybody pretty much knows me, but I'm his oldest granddaughter. And you're going to hear a lot of stories about later years, my kids and my grandkids. But my grandpa was the biggest, strongest man that ever lived. Or at least that's the way I always saw him. From the time I was just a tiny thing, we had this ritual. Every single time we saw each other, he would put his arms out and I would run into them and jump, and he would throw me up over his head and catch me. And that continued till after I graduated high school. I didn't catch as much air in those later years, though. And I could tell you tons of stories about his brute strength, How 20 years ago he was still doing sit-ups on an incline bench with a weight on his chest. How he did push-ups with me sitting on his back when I was a senior in high school. So many things where he was stubborn and he moved the really heavy thing all by himself. But he was so much more than that. He was also, this is where he might have to come in, the most gentle, tender, big-hearted, loving man. He never made me feel like a bother. In fact, quite the opposite. He always made sure I knew I was wanted, I mattered. He was fantastic at finding ways to show this in everyday life. You may have seen a picture in the beginning of this, but I still have vivid memories of riding the lawnmower with him when I was just a little tiny thing. He would hop on the snapper, perch me on his leg, and off we'd go. One of my absolute favorite memories, and we did it all the time. While we drove, he would belt out the songs he knew I loved, Playmate being my all-time favorite, while we jostled all over the place on that old lawnmower. Between the singing and the jostling, it never took too long before I would be slumped over, sound asleep on the crook of his arm, and he would hold me just like that until the entire lawn was done. And if you've been to the house, it's a huge lawn. Yeah. He was so very intentional about saying, I love you, always. He would say it often and with such sincerity until his very last day. I was so lucky to call him my grandpa and receive a lifetime of his love and support. But he seemed to have had a never-ending supply that was freely given. I know all of you sitting out there know how amazing he was at making everyone who crossed his path feel seen, cared for, loved. So I want you to help me, do me a favor here. I would love for you to stand and remain standing if he visited you or someone you loved while they were at home sick, in the hospital, or in the nursing home. Go ahead and stand if you've had that experience. He used to tour the nursing homes almost daily. Stand up if he made a beeline over to talk to you if he saw you out in public. Stand up if he made a point to give you a big hug or the hardest handshake of your life every time he saw you. Stand up if he offered you food and sweets, typically multiple times, while you started to come to the realization that no was not going to be an answer that he would hear. It's so very comforting to know how many lives have been touched by him. Please know that you mattered to him too. Grandma, everybody's standing. You can sit down. Thank you. And so now, when we are finished with this portion, you are going to be invited to go eat with us, and I'm just going to say, in memory of Grandpa, you will not be able to say no. So meet us out there. Thanks.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Grandpa's first great-granddaughter. I'm sure you've all been looking at his pictures. Wasn't he so handsome? Most of my memories are with him as an older man, but I sure wish I knew him in those younger years. But I've heard some funny and silly, crazy stories. All my memories come from the great-grandpa era of his life. Over the past week, a flood of those memories have come back to me. Instead of trying to piece them together perfectly, I just want to share a few of them. I think a handful of us got our love for food from Grandpa. Anytime there was food in sight, especially sweets or coffee, I'd notice him sitting there eyeing it, trying his best to be patient, and it would personally bother me to the point I would oftentimes go ask somebody if I could hurry and grab him something myself. And if I was allowed and I brought it over, gosh, he was always so thrilled. He'd say, "Oh, thank you," and dig right in. That love for food definitely showed at Ming's Chinese Buffet, if any of you know what that is. It runs deep in our family, but especially Grandpa. He'd go there and sit from lunch all the way through dinner, then wrap up some bones from the chicken he ate, tuck it in his pocket, and head home, which we all know is against the buffet rules, but he had an agreement with the owners. They knew he was just taking them home to feed his cats. Another memory I'll always hold on to is when it came to turkey run time every year. I could always look forward to going into Grandma and Grandpa's room, where we'd all circle around the bed on the side that Grandpa was laying on, and he would sing Playmate to all of us. I can still hear his voice singing that song, and I know I always will. When I was born, I was told that Grandpa was sick, but he wanted to see me so badly that he came to the house just to look through the window, and there's actually a picture of it. I think that's one of the sweetest things I've ever heard. And truthfully, I don't think that he ever stopped seeing me as that little baby, because one memory that I have is when I was in 7th grade, and I thought I was fully grown already. Grandpa had to pick me up from school one day, and most people just, pull up in the car line. Nope. Grandpa parked his car, walked all the way up all those stairs of that middle school, grabbed my hand firmly, of course, and walked me all the way to the car. At the time, I thought I was too old for that and was a little embarrassed. I was like, "Oh, okay, this is really happening," but now I realize that that's just who he was, loving, protective, and proud. Those are the moments I'll always carry with me. I may not have known him in his every stage of his life, but I was lucky enough to know him as my great-grandpa, and that's something I will always be grateful for. The last time Grandpa told me he loved me, he said, "I'll love you always and always." So, Grandpa, from my first day of life to your last, I'll love and miss you always and always.
Okay, yes, that's a microphone. Say hi.
Hi.
We practiced that.
Okay, so everyone, I am Haley. I am a great-granddaughter. This is my husband Tristan, my daughter Zoe, and my other daughter Chandler sitting down over there. So every time that I sat down to write something, I couldn't help but to write as if I was talking to Grandpa. So here it goes. Grandpa, for so long, I was scared to live in a world without you. You've been there my entire life, but now I've come to realize that I will never live in a world without you. You are surrounding us every day. You're found in a warm hug, a strong handshake, singing old songs to my babies, peanut butter milkshakes, a warm cup of coffee, going on drives, the biggest piece of birthday cake, and always making sure to get enough ice cream to go with it, even if that means going back for more because, well, you gotta even it out. I'll always remember and cherish coming to your and Grandma's house after school to watch crime shows with you and drinking root beer and having many kinds of ice cream to choose from to go along with it, and of course the cookies that Grandma would always have freshly baked for us whenever we got there. You are everything that I could have hoped for in a great grandpa. I'm so glad that I got to know you. You're a truly loving and playful family man in a generation that I've learned that those characteristics were scarce. You have helped shape our families, which now spread across many homes and will continue to grow and teach the same playfulness and family morals. You may not be able to be here with us, but the memories of you will live on. Thank you for being such an amazing man. I love you, Grandpa. Whew, okay. So, I know that this is supposed to be extremely happy, and I tried to make mine as happy as I could, but he was my buddy, and I miss him. So I'm gonna cry, and it's gonna be a little sad. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a great granddaughter. Okay. So, this is never the kind of speech anyone wants to write. It's almost impossible to sum up the impact that my grandpa made on this world in words that will only last a couple minutes. He was not just any man, he was the best man that I knew. He smiled to every stranger, gave love to everyone in his life, had an amazing amount of faith, defended his country, and created one of the largest families you've literally ever seen. He was a husband, a father, a friend, and a grandpa. In his later years, he picked up a phrase that he would say to everyone after saying, "I love you, bye." "Hold it down to run," he'd say. None of us ever truly understood what it meant, so we always replied with a, "I will," and just a smile. So later this week, I decided to dig in, figure out the true meaning, and why it was so important for him to tell everyone. It said, "Take care of yourself and keep going on no matter what, or stay strong and keep moving life forward." This statement alone shows the type of person he was. He had positivity like it was a superpower and cared for everyone around him so deeply. When I try to picture him now, I picture us sitting on the couch after school, scarfing down cookies and cream ice cream and some root beer, which I've heard is mentioned in a few other speeches because that really stood out. And watching every crime show as well. I remember the feeling of his hug and the tight hand squeeze he'd give as you pull away. I remember the light in his face every time anyone walked through his front door. I remember the sound of him singing, the sound of his voice when he told me he loved me. There's really no easy way to say goodbye, so here's my best. I know you can hear the birds. I know you're running to your loved ones. You have unlimited sweets. And you're watching over all of us every second, waiting for us to run back into your arms. It's no goodbye. It's see you later, alligator. I love you always, and I always will. Love you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jackson Kessinger, and I am one of his great-grandchildren. And what I figured I'd say today was a story. And this particular story is our last interaction before he had gone to the hospital. And I'm very proud of this, because it happened to be March 14th. Now, at the time, I was in Canada in a grocery store when I got a call from Grandma Hoopingarner. And this particular day was my birthday. And anyone who has had their birthday and is close with the two, of course, gets a call and serenaded. So I answered the phone, and I got a wonderful performance from the two of them. And of course, it ended with, "and many more." And anyone can correct me, but I believe this is the final "and many more." And I'm very proud to say that that's something I got. And because of that, I know the family well, but in particularly, I'd like to continue it forward, because it's always felt special to me. So that's what I have to say.
We have some other people who do have some things prepared, but I say something if you'd like. It was my mother's desire, as I said, for this to be informal. I can bring a mic to you if you have a few things you want to say. I can also say that you can just stand up and speak, or you can come up here. So in between some of these, you're more than welcome to do that. And we don't want to take that opportunity away from you. Hi, I didn't get to see you. I'm trying to exemplify the whole informal thing. Okay, so if we have someone, I'll let you step in here. If we don't, I'll go on with some more that we have that are prepared. Yep, okay. We've got one coming up. Anybody here, while she's coming, anybody here remember any of those things that the grandkids said? Yeah. By the way, I'm like so proud. I'm thinking these kids take after him, but I'm thinking they also take after me.
I'm not going to. Hi, precious. I'm not going to stay up here long, but I have to tell you, I have two favorite things about Don Hoopingarner. He loved my mom, just like Carol. He loved my mom, and he took such good care of her. She went to a nursing home, went to an apartment complex. He went every week, took her to the hairdresser, then for ice cream. They got extra ice cream. He took her to the Goodwill. He took her, if I would say to him, Don, just stop, he'd say, it's fine, after he shook his hand. But my favorite Don story, Carol wasn't with him. I made the sad mistake of getting involved with the Blue Moon restaurant in Lausanne. I hate it to this very second, and it isn't even there anymore, and I still hate it. He came in right after I bought it, and he came up, and he said, can I talk to you a minute? And I thought, oh no, I've poisoned Don Hoopingarner. He said, can we talk about your bean soup? And I said, sure. And he said, you only had 37 beans in my bowl. And I said, you counted them? And he said, I did. There were twice that many at the Copper Kettle. And I said, you count the beans in everybody's bean soup? And he said, yes. And he got out a piece of paper, and he unfolded it, and he named them all off. And I just stood there. I had no idea what to do. And I said, so if the bean soup only had 37 beans in it, and that was half of what the Copper Kettle was, does that mean you only need to pay for half of the beans? And he said, I can pay for the beans, but I think you need to be aware that you're cheating people with the beans. And I said, I can't do that, so I'm only going to charge you 37 cents for the beans. And he said, okay. And he pulled out the quarter, and he pulled out the dime, and he pulled out 2 pennies, and he gave them to me, and he walked right out the door. And from that moment on, I never looked at bean soup again the same way as long as I lived. And if I was ever grateful for 2 people that meant so much to my life, it was Don and Carol. Not just because they gave the world Donna Ann and because she was smart enough to marry Donnie, who I've always loved, but also because he was the most precious, gentle, kindest man, and he took care of my mother, who never stopped asking for stuff. She constantly, but she knew he would do it. Carol and my mother were traveling companions, and he just took it all in stride, and he took such good care of her that when she died, I put their names in her obituary as part of our family. That's how good he was and how much I loved him. That's it.
This little one has a mother right here who may be ready. Are you ready? That was excellent. So now, that was impromptu. That is Dee Hartman's child right there. And boy, fruit didn't fall far from the tree, because Dee could do it, couldn't she? She could do an impromptu like that. That was beautiful. Thank you.
So the first thing I'm going to say was written by my daughter, Caroline. She's okay. And this is in reference to the end, the sound that Grandpa made of that I can't totally replicate. So Caroline wrote a haiku that I'm reading for her. My great-grandpa Hoop. FBI crime shows, lots of peanut butter shakes. That's her haiku. Okay, and then I'm Shelby, and this is what I wanted to share. So, we all know Santa. Of course, my house has always been visited by Santa, but one of my favorite childhood memories with Grandpa were visits from Ol' Santa, who's a totally different character. Ol' Santa had a way of teasing us about something funny that happened that year, always with a little gift to go along with it. The gifts would be wrapped in newspaper, or in a paper plastic sack, along with a silly note attached, all meant to get a good laugh. And the note always came as a ridiculous rhyme, starting the same way every time. Ho, 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 Ol' Santa hears. One year, Grandpa got coffee candies from Ol' Santa. One year, Grandpa got coffee candies because he stopped so many times on a trip for coffee. Another year, he got a contraption to wash his hat in the dishwasher because he never took it off and it was so dirty. And Grandpa really got a kick out of these Ol' Santa gifts. So even though it's April, it still felt right for a note from Ol' Santa. Of course, it'll follow along with the ridiculous rhymes. Just realized I'm missing a page. Gotta look it up on my phone. You have the second page. No, Grandma, do you have the second page? Ho, ho, ho. Ol' Santa hears. Grandpa Hoop got a big promotion this year. In his earthly job, he had big things to do. Now, in his heavenly assignment, he's got things to do too. All those that loved him will miss seeing him each day, but he's on to bigger things now, in a different kind of way. Like any other job, of course, for the one up there, he's provided his resume. Lifeguard, airman, tool maker, clearly doing nothing halfway. A hard worker, dedicated, strong, and smart. He's a real gem. You can see that from the start. But for this new job, I'll help just a bit, as there are some things missing in this resume of his. I've got a few additions, some notes for the employer, if you will. So, what else is there to know about Donald Wayne Hoopingarner, this man with so many skills? Don's workplace habits. He may fill his plate several times at pitch-ins, especially with sweets, and what he doesn't finish, he'll stuff in his pockets for any wild animals to eat. He will likely keep Little Debbie snacks under his desk, and those he won't want to share, but will also offer a mint to anyone who walks by. Pass and say no thanks, don't even dare. A lunch break is imperative, but he won't take it until 2 o'clock. At that time, he'll head to Steak and Shake happy hour and go visit a squirrel, eagle, or some other kind of flock. He might empty the coffee pot before 10 a.m., but don't worry, he'll just make the whole pot again. He's a bit of a loud talker. It's just a habit you see, but no need to pat his leg and remind him. Now, at this placement, he hears perfectly. Don's professional communication. His vocabulary is large, but he may use the same jokes and phrases day to day, like hold it down to a run and hope to stay that way. When told to have a good day, he might push back a little and say, "Don't tell me what to do." But no worries, he's a friendly guy. It's just a bit he likes to do. Don's team interactions. Don will be a team player. Give firm handshakes and hugs. He will make house calls to visit when a pal comes down with a bug. He will visit with older people, tell jokes to everyone he meets. He might bust a move here and there, and even watch team members' little babies. He has this noise he likes to make. With his silly noises and faces, as a babysitter, he takes the cake. He probably should drive on team outings or else. He might give lots of comments from the passenger seat. He just can't help himself. He will boost the manners of the team, ensuring elbows off the table, slouching, and pajamas in public are not seen. Don's environmental preferences. Don will need the temperature to be kept at 85 degrees and will probably still need a jacket and a blanket to cover his knees. On those car rides where he is in charge, just bring a personal portable fan and keep a tank top for his car. He will need a TV playing in the background for background noise and maybe a good Western book on his desk, but I assure you his focus and quality of work will still be the best. That should be enough to get you started. Other special things you will surely see. When attempting to understand Don, here's the key. He loves his people in simple, steady ways. His hugs, kisses, and waves could brighten anyone's day. He brings humor and orneriness wherever he goes. He's got personality from his head to his toes. He makes everyone feel included, loved, and cared for. He's a wonderful man to his core. And last but not least, Donald Wayne Hoopingarner shows up. For his family, his friends, he's along for the ride. Celebrations, camping trips, craft shows, conventions, family dinners, he's there by your side. A presence, a guide, a light, he is one amazing guy. So for this promotion, he is perfect for the job you see and will be just as important to you as he's always been to me.
Raise your hand if you prepared something. I don't want to, I know you have one. Okay. Anybody else that would like to come up, you're welcome to, or if you want, I'll bring the mic to you. Or if you just want to stand up and have something to say, that's good too. Okay.
I do want to say something about everybody mentioned how strong his handshake was. The first time at church I met him shaking his hand as a young man, I thought my hand might break. And as time went on, I could get stronger and stronger and grasp onto it and go on for the ride on, you act like it's a saw, right? And it gets sawdust on the ground and you keep kicking it around and everything. But I can never match his strength. That's what I remember about him. He was super strong and friendly with that friendly handshake.
It's interesting that you say that because he wasn't in a hospital or a facility for very long, and we're so grateful for that. But while he was still kind of himself there at the beginning when he was starting to struggle, he decided he was going to shake the doctor's hand. And by golly, the doctor went, whoa. He was expecting him to be frail, and no, he was very proud of the fact that the muscles were still in the hands, not other places. Yeah.
I want to say something also. Don and Carol would babysit, was part of our family a lot of times after school, and every time they went over there, they always got offered ice cream, chocolate ice cream, or anything they had on hand. Also, that old porch that people used to sit on, I don't know if you remember re-roofing that.
Yep.
We re-roofed that, and Don was right along beside me.
I'm sure offering plenty of help, verbal verbal help.
Well, I got something. I grew up in this church, so I've known Don and Carol all my life, and Donnie Ann. And I think both Selena and Sylvia mentioned not giving out sweets. I'll give a little background information on that. If you were part of the church service, such as a worship leader or a deacon or whatever, and you exited on this side of the church, you always got a sweet from Don's pocket. Never failed to give you one as you were leaving, go back to your seat. That was
Yeah, whether you wanted it or not, right? And like Shelby said, and don't say no, because that would not work. We still will have some time if something comes to you, and I'm going to go ahead, and I believe we have one more that's prepared, and I think we're good. Come on up, Daryl. I told Daryl not to sit in the back. We didn't want to watch him have to come all the way up here.
It's nice to be with you today. I'm Daryl Radford. I've known Don Ann since 6th grade, and her family and Don Ann have meant an awful lot to me and to Becky over the years. A firm handshake that spoke loudly, "I'm glad to see you." A soft voice praying sincerely to God at the communion table. A Navy man who always stood at attention to the task at hand, but never sought to draw attention to himself. That was Don. Someone who embraced the dance of life with a heart of gold guiding his steps. A faithful man who cherished his wife and family, loved his neighbor, and served his church with the same determination he deployed to serve his country. A skillful man who could do anything, fix anything, and gave his all to everything. That was Don. A man of adventure who loved to travel. A man of compassion who loved his home. A man always on a mission, following an unbreakable moral compass to navigate whatever challenges came his way. That was Don. How fitting and even poetic that Donald Wayne Hoopingarner's final voyage through the valley of the shadow of death came during Easter weekend, when we celebrate the risen Christ. The Christ that Don tried with all his might to love with all his heart, all his mind, and all his soul. Certainly we are sad to see him go, but the gladness on this day overrides the sadness. Thank you, dear God, for sharing this wonderful man with us. Thank you, dear God, for the 96 years of memories that will live on. Thank you, dear God, for the navigational chart this sailor left behind, with so many examples of kindness, service, and work ethic that will lead us through any troubled waters that lay ahead in our own journeys. As the years went by, Don's hearing failed him, but his charm, his way with people, and his genuine sweetness did not. During a church service, as you've heard, it was common to see his hand reach out, offering a mint to someone behind him. It was done in true Don fashion, quietly, sincerely, a gesture of love to his neighbor. I found this sailor's prayer that I'd like to read in Don's honor. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray thee, Lord, my soul to keep. Grant no other sailor take my shoes and socks before I wake. Lord, guard me in my slumber and keep my hammock on its number. May no clues or lashing break and let me down before I wake. Keep me safely in the sight and grant no fire drill tonight. And in the morning let me wake, breathing scents of sirloin steaks. God, protect me in my dreams and make this better than it seems. Grant the time may swiftly fly when myself shall rest on high in a snowy feather bed where I long to rest my head, far away from all these scenes and the smell of half-done beans. Take me back into the land where they don't scrub down with sand, where no demon typhoid blows, where the women wash the clothes. God, thou knowest all my woes. Feed me in my dying throes. Take me back, I promise then, never to leave home again. After a 96-year voyage filled with an ocean of good deeds, handshakes, and hugs, Don is home at last. And as we wipe away the tears, let us clear the lumps in our throats and say, until we meet again, Rest in peace, Don. And from the bottom of our hearts, so enriched by yours, we say thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Denton. My wife Dixie and I and our children were members of this congregation for quite some time. And it's so good to look out here and see so many familiar faces and so many friends. Dixie and I were talking about Don, and I remember when she told me that he had passed on, and we began to share some memories. But our memory together of Don is one that's very quiet, very long-lasting, and something that Don did quietly, never shared, but it made a big impact on our family. Most of you know that January 30th, 2006, 20 years ago this year, we lost our son in an accident. Don lived fairly close to that crash site, and that crash site became kind of a memorial, very small, but people brought flowers, they brought stuffed animals, and memorialized that particular area. And we noticed as we would drive by and go to Blue River School and go places and heading maybe into Newcastle and going up the Muncie Pike, that crash site was being maintained and manicured and looked after. And we kept wondering, who's doing that? So we began to ask around. We didn't really find anything, but we kept noticing that it was so well kept. And again, it was a small memorial site. And then we found out it was Don who was doing that. He quietly and silently, without fanfare, began to just look after that and take care of it. He was the caretaker of that place. Most people attend to a grave, but he tended to that, so it became a very meaningful place for us. And even after the memorials quit coming, and it became just a place in the road that was not marked that well, it continued to be manicured and taken care of by Don, and he just continued to do that. And as I've listened to all of you today, I think about people that maybe make a big splash in life, and then it's over. And then there are those who throw pebbles. And make little ripples that continue on. And they continue to throw pebbles and make ripples that quietly go across the lake that not a lot of people see, but they're making an impact. Some make a big splash. Some make an impact that continues and goes on. And that was Don. And that was Don in our life. And Dixie sends her best. She's busy with some Ball State things today. But she said to tell everybody hello. And that is our sentiment of him. And she shares that equally with me. And how grateful we were for Don to do that. That's just a place in the road now. There's nothing there to really identify it other than we kind of know where that was. But thanks to Don, it kind of lives on in our heart in memory for what he did for our family. And I know my story and our story is not that much different than all of yours. The impact that he made in your life, and listening to all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, he affected your life equally as well. But to a non-family member, he made a significant impact on us too. Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, I'll tell you what. you know what? My mother would love a call, and you just reminisce a little bit that way too. So there, if something comes to you, share it, drop her a card, give her a call. She has cared for him beautifully, and she's going to have some time on her hands. So we can feel that. If that's all we have right now, I'm going to ask James to go ahead and do a prayer. And then I know you're going to be shocked, but I'm probably going to say just one more thing.
I was asked to do the closing prayer and to pray for the food, so you can go ahead and eat when you get over there. But just a couple of things I want to throw in there. As I got to talk to people, especially people in our congregation that remember our carry-in meals with Don, when you go there, first get your food, sit it down, and then go get your dessert. I had some people wondered if Don ever had a hot meal in his life, because he would always sit it down and then go get his dessert, and he was all about the dessert. Don't forget dessert. That's another Don rule. And last but least, as many trips as you need, there's plenty of food. And I wouldn't suggest putting it in your pockets, but we do have carry-out containers for you to take food home with. Let's go, Lord, in prayer. God of all life, we thank you for the life we remember here today. We ask that you be with us in the days ahead, the sorrow and loneliness that may weave shadows around us, that we also remember all the joy and wonder, the handshakes, the laughter, the stories, all that we remember Don. And that through the power of Christ's resurrection, we ask that you restore hope and give us strength to carry on our lives when we find ourselves grieving. We pray that your grace and love will be an abiding presence in this time of need, and fill our spirit with truth of life and grant us peace. As we prepare to share the meal together, to honor and celebrate Don, we ask that you bless the food. Let it nourish our bodies. Bless the hands that prepare it, that they may know our appreciation of their time and their gifts. We pray that you will bless our time together as we continue to share our stories and memories. And now, with the peace of God, which is beyond our understanding, guard our hearts and our thoughts in the knowledge and love. May the blessing of God Almighty, our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, be among us and remain with us always. Amen.
It says closing remarks, so that means really and truly I have to close. You had a unique experience of Don Hoopingarner and heard many things that made him uniquely him. Things he brought to the world that made it a better place. I challenge you to not just miss the man you knew, but decide to take on one thing you admired, one thing you feel the world continues to need that he offered. Maybe it will be the easy, frequent hugs that you'll pass on, and you'll do them more frequently than you may have before. Maybe you'll lift the day of a stranger by telling them a joke or just speaking to them and letting them know that they mattered. Maybe you'll just want to put a smile on someone's face for no reason at all. Or maybe you'll say a prayer every night, just like he did, even into his last days. Whatever it is, I challenge you this day to take it on, embody it, and make it more a part of who you offer and what you offer to the world. And then he truly does live on. The world doesn't have to experience such a void if we do this. And I can tell you that that would make him really happy, that he would continue to have value on this earth. I now need to tell you from my dad one more thing. You have a good one now. hold it down to a run, followed by and wink. Thank you all. And she says, and join us. So if you don't know, this church goes that way to the kitchen, and you are more than welcome to go that way. And Mother wants those, you know, there are only 420 pictures out there, so you may not have made them all. The grandchildren are told to carry them in so that you don't miss any of that. So, again, Mother has spoken.